The snow fell like a gentle whisper over the quiet streets of Boston, turning the city into a glistening winter wonderland. Christmas Eve had always been magical for some, but for Clara Thompson, it was just another reminder of how alone she was. As a single mother struggling to make ends meet, she had spent the day shuttling her little boy, Ethan, between a friend's house and her part-time job at the bakery, all while trying to keep the Christmas spirit alive. Her worn coat barely kept the cold out, and the ache of exhaustion was buried deep in her bones. Tonight, however, there was something different. A blind date she hadn't dared hope for, arranged by her well-meaning sister, Rachel. Clara couldn't remember the last time she allowed herself to believe that someone might see her, really see her, for who she was beyond the struggle and the sleepless nights. As she tightened her scarf and stepped into the cozy, softly lit restaurant, Clara's heart raced, not with excitement, but with a quiet dread. She had convinced herself it was ridiculous to hope, to expect kindness, or to imagine that anyone could genuinely care about her life of compromises and hard choices. Her fingers trembled as she brushed snowflakes from her hair, her eyes scanning the room, half expecting to be disappointed. If this man didn't show up, or worse, turned out to be arrogant or uninterested, she would have to face the bitter truth once more. People like her were invisible to the world of the fortunate. Before the date even began, Clara's nerves twisted into a tighter knot. She noticed the polished shoes, the soft scent of expensive cologne, the careful attention of the waitstaff. It all screamed a world she didn't belong to. But there was something in her heart that still dared to hope. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and miracles, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Across the room, a man waited. Nathaniel Reed was not just any man. He was a CEO. Someone whose name made headlines and whose schedule was as impossible as it was packed. Yet, here he was, quietly seated in the dim glow of the restaurant's Christmas lights, hands folded, watching the door as if he had all the time in the world to wait for Clara. Nathaniel wasn't expecting anything from this evening, certainly not a life-changing connection. But there was something about Clara's sister's plea, her insistence that Nathaniel take a chance on someone who had nothing but heart, that stirred something deep within him. Clara's first moments were awkward, filled with polite smiles and cautious small talk. She could feel the divide between their worlds, a place she would never belong, and a place he lived effortlessly. Every laugh she offered, every shy glance, was met with warmth, yet she kept telling herself it was temporary. He would notice the crumbs in her bag, the frayed edges of her coat, and leave. That was the way of life, wasn't it? People like her were always left behind. The evening unfolded slowly. Nathaniel was patient, listening to Clara's stories about Ethan, her struggles with work, and her dreams that seemed too big to ever reach. He didn't pity her. He didn't offer empty sympathy. He simply listened, genuinely engaged, as if each word she spoke mattered more than the millions in his bank account. Clara couldn't understand how someone like him could care, and the walls she had built around her heart trembled, threatening to crumble. She laughed softly at a memory of Ethan's mischief, feeling the heaviness of the past lift slightly with every shared smile. Time seemed to slip by unnoticed until the restaurant's last guests trickled out. Clara looked at her watch and felt a familiar panic rise. Midnight was near, and with it, the magical moment of Christmas she had always dreamed of sharing with someone she loved. She could feel the familiar ache of fear, the fear of being left alone, abandoned just when hope seemed possible. The thought of walking out into the snowy street, returning to her quiet apartment with Ethan asleep and the world indifferent, made her chest tighten. Nathaniel noticed her glance at the clock and the subtle slump of her shoulders. He reached across the table gently and said something that made her heart pause. He wasn't going anywhere. He would wait. He understood what it meant to cling to hope, and he wasn't about to let her think that she had to face the world alone tonight. Clara felt tears prick her eyes, a mix of disbelief and gratitude. For the first time in a long time, someone wasn't judging her, wasn't calculating what she could give or achieve. Someone simply wanted to be present, to share a moment, to see her. And then, as the clock struck midnight, and the first church bells of Christmas rang through the snowy streets, Nathaniel stood, offering his hand with a shy, hopeful smile. Clara hesitated, overwhelmed, but then took it, allowing herself a leap of faith she hadn't dared in years. Outside, the snow had softened the world into a quiet, pristine scene. Nathaniel held Clara's hand firmly, and they walked together through the city streets, Ethan giggling beside them in the stroller. It wasn't the lavish holiday Clara had once dreamed of. It was something far better. A night filled with genuine connection, kindness, and the magic of being seen. Nathaniel didn't need to impress her with wealth or status. His patience, his quiet devotion, his willingness to wait and understand, that was the gift he offered, and it was priceless. For Clara, Christmas Eve had transformed from a night of quiet despair into one of wonder and hope. She had learned that life could surprise her in ways she had stopped believing possible, that kindness could exist even in the most unlikely places, and that sometimes the heart waited for the one moment that could change everything. Nathaniel had taught her that true generosity wasn't measured in money or gifts. It was measured in presence, in the willingness to stay when leaving would have been easier. As they paused under the softly falling snow, Clara glanced at Nathaniel and felt an unfamiliar sense of peace. The fears that had once weighed so heavily on her, the struggles, the nights of doubt, the quiet loneliness, were still there, yes, but now tempered by the warmth of connection and hope. Ethan reached up to hold Nathaniel's hand, and in that simple gesture, Clara realized that this was the beginning of something real, something that could endure beyond Christmas, beyond expectations, beyond fear. If this story touched your heart, if you felt the magic of hope and second chances through Clara and Nathaniel's journey, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let your hearts be reminded that miracles are possible when patience, kindness, and courage come together. Before the story ends, I would love for you to comment below. When was the last time someone's simple act of waiting or kindness changed your life in ways you didn't expect? Clara finally walked back to her small apartment with Ethan, her heart lighter, her spirit renewed. Nathaniel walked beside her, not as a stranger from another world, but as someone who had proven that hearts could meet, barriers could fall, and love could appear in the quietest, most unexpected moments. That Christmas Eve, in the heart of a snowy Boston, hope was no longer just a dream. It was real, tangible, and waiting for anyone willing to believe.